Here are 5 tips for new players and beginners of Ara History Untold that aren't obvious or covered well in the tutorials. First, understanding regions and zones is critical for planning efficient cities. A region is the larger area that contains between 2 and 6 zones, and when you expand your city, you get to pick a new region and add that to your borders. When you build improvements, you build it in one of the zones within a region. This is important to understand because many of the improvements have bonuses that are applied to other buildings in the region. This means that you should plan to build improvements partially based on how they benefit other buildings that you already have in a region. For example, bakeries get a production benefit to having other bakeries in the region, so you're better off building multiple bakeries in the same region instead of across multiple regions, and oftentimes even across different cities. It's better to keep them in one city and one region because you get that extra benefit. Bakeries is one example. You've got lots of other buildings that have region benefits, so look at an individual building and see what is best for that building. Second, forming armies. When you build military units, they go into a reserve bank and must be deployed before you can use them. And by default, it's just a single unit formation, and it's not obvious that you can actually pick other formations that get unlocked with tech over time that allow you to create armies that have additional bonuses and use multiple units. When you put together an army, you'll see the abilities that army has, as well as the cost of maintaining the army, which can include materials and food, not just gold. When you put an army together, you'll see all the abilities the army has, as well as the cost of maintaining the army, which include materials and food, not just gold. Third, switching harvests. This is a very basic mechanic once you know it's there, but can change the value of resources in a meaningful way and isn't really covered in the tutorials. When you have an improved zone that gives a special resource, you often have the ability to choose between different yields that you can receive from that resource. All you have to do is select the zone and you'll see the options on the side and click what you want, and that improvement will provide that resource. You need to understand this to get certain resources like tallow, precious metal, and goats. You can also switch resources when you have an abundance of a particular resource. For example, I seem to always be ending up with tons of fish, more than I could possibly use. I can turn some fish resources into straight food, which makes it easier to benefit from those resources, and I'm not wasting tons of fish every turn because the amount of processing downstream that would require to turn that into salted fish is just not feasible. Fourth, declaring war. When you declare war in Ara, you have to pick an objective based on available options. The war will then end when either the objective is met or the timeline expires, the timeline you set when you declare the war. For example, you can declare the objective of a war is to take over a specific city. And if you do this, the war is going to last until the city is captured or until time expires, whichever happens first. Number 5 is related to war. To take a city, you must get a unit on top of the city and pillage it to 0 health. This will then allow you to decide to either raise or occupy the city. Now, if the city has walls, you have to get next to the city and bombard the city for a few turns to bring the walls down before you can get on top of it and actually pillage it. As a bonus, number 6, the inventory menu is a great tool to help you plan your cities and production. This menu is accessed from the top right and shows you everything you're producing, things you're not producing, and how much is being used each turn in your different production and amenities chains. This is very useful to see what you aren't producing, as well as where you're using more than you are producing. Note that it's not going to show you goods you could produce that you have 0 of and 0 consumption. So you either have to have some or you have to be consuming some for it to show up on this list. What things are you uncovering that should have been in the tutorial? Drop a comment and let me know.